Our guest today is Chris Mosdell. He is a British lyricist, poet, author, composer, vocalist, and illustrator. He has collaborated with an extensive array of musicians and artists, though he is especially known for his work with Yellow Magic Orchestra and the poet Shuntaro Tanikawa. Under his pseudonym MOZZ, Chris Mosdell has written and illustrated a series of award-winning children's books. MOZZ has been described as weird and charming, a modern-day Dr. Seuss or Shel Silverstein, creating words that are often nonsensical but always whimsical. MOZZ is also a marvelous performer. With his quick wit and worldly wackiness, he is a smash hit with children. When he reads his poems, he peppers his performance with lots of amusing anecdotes and funny facts, just like our conversation today. Enjoy! Hi, Chris. Thanks for joining us today.
No, my pleasure.
All right. So, you are a lyricist, poet, author, composer, vocalist, and illustrator.
That's a very long title.
It is. So naturally, I want to start by talking about microbiology, because apparently you have a background in science.
I have a degree in microbiology. When you're 15 in England, this is years ago, when you're 15, you have to make this incredible life-changing decision between science and art. My father's from Cambridge University, a scientist, and of course, I was relatively good at science and good at art, but basically my father was the dictator of the rule.
I see, okay.
And at 15 you make the decision, so you go to university, and I studied microbiology at university.
Wow.
And then afterwards, I actually started a master's degree in pathology.
Pathology?
I was going to be a doctor. My mother was so happy that I was going to do this.
Yeah.
And halfway through it, I realized this was not my route in life. And
so you dropped out?
I didn't drop out. I actually then decided to do a degree, not a degree, but a course in graphic art.
Okay.
At 1 year at an art college in graphic art. And then I came to Japan.
Wow.
By I don't know, by fate, by mysticism, by chance.
Yeah. Well, certainly I have a whole bunch of questions about Japan, but I want to take a step back for a moment. How did you realize that the doctor thing was not for you?
Just that nobody I spoke to understood what I was talking about, because it was such a specialized science.
I see.
And when you have such a specialized microbiology, when you have such a specialized science, there's not much you can do in that field but go into some scientific field.
Right.
And all my friends were in the arts. And so I realized then that I was in the wrong stream.
Right. Okay, so you can kind of project your life path forward, and you wanted to get on a different set of rails.
Just, yes, nobody understood what I was talking about when I was talking about microbiology. But in a sense, microbiology, strangely, being a scientist is very good, because I'm very logical. All my work is based on all my poems are very logical. I'm using mathematical formula, and my solo album is called Equation, and it's I'm using visuals and music and things all put together. So my science background is definitely a big boon to how I do my work now.
Yeah. Would you say? Is it fair to say that you would be a very different author and lyricist if it weren't for that background in the beginning?
Yes, I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very straight. People think that I'm very abstract and very kind of surreal, but actually I'm not. All my work, in the sense of poetry, in the sense of my children's poetry, is it's all very metered. It's all very the stories are very logical. They have a kind of a story to them, and they have a kind of there's no abstract sense to them.
Right.
So I think my science background has given me that kind of. I've always had it. I mean, I think as a child, everything has to be perfect. No, the paper hasn't got to have any marks on it. Everything has to be I'm very neat and very tidy.
Precise.
And so science is. I think that's what my character kind of reflected.
I see. Last time we met, you told a story about a book you found in a library that seemed to be fate calling. Can you tell that story again?
Yes, it's a very funny story. Basically, my name is Chris Mosdell. Mosdell is a quite rare name. Not so rare now because it's on the internet and you can, the home. The internet brings everything home much more clearer.
Yeah.
But basically, my parents said we were very proud that we were the only people in the telephone book with the name Mosdell. So anyway, one day this is like about 20 years ago. I'm searching the internet and I come across the name Mosdell. I go, what's this? And it's John Mosdell. It's the John Mosdell from an antiquarian bookshop in the south of England, and it goes a book of poetry by John Mosdell, signed, first edition copy, 1895. I'm going, oh, this is my roots. This has to be my great-great-grandfather.
Right, with such a rare name.
Yes.
Mosdell, yeah.
So I phoned my father up and I said, Dad, what's the name of your grandfather? He goes, I don't know. I go, what do you mean you don't know?
Yeah.
He goes, well, that side of the family we tended not to associate with, and also he died before I was born. I'm going, well, he says, why? He says, well, I found this book by John Mosdell, a poetry book. And he said, what's the name of the poetry book? I said, it's called The Village of Mortimer and Other Poems. He goes, oh, that's where my father was born, in Mortimer. I go, Dad, this has to be
more than a coincidence.
This has to be a relative of ours. Yeah. So he goes, okay, so then he was living in the north of England, and it's near Reading, it's in the southern part of England. So he made a special trip down to the grave, basically, unless you go to Somerset House, which is where you can kind of look up your roots, you can go to the church registers or the graveyards. And so he went down there and, yes, found a lot of Mosdells in the graveyard.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
but no John.
Oh.
But definitely, he's some relative of mine, only because at the very end of the article, which it was advertised as John Mortimer, Village of Mortimer, John Mosdell, Village of Mortimer, and Other Poems. And at the very end, it goes, a gem of awful poetry. And as soon as it says a gem of awful poetry, I realize, yes, this is where my roots came from.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So it was you were destined to do what you do.
I think so.
So you've done a lot of many types of things in your career. I mentioned earlier, writing poetry, lyrics for music. You're a vocalist and illustrator. But what I really want to learn more about is how you got into writing children's books. Because this is something that's relatively new in your career. Is that right?
Yes, it's 10 years or maybe more, maybe 15 years. Okay, so I actually won a poetry prize in Japan, which was aimed at children. I thought, let me have a go at writing for children. So, because I have two children myself, and at that time they were very young, and I go, okay, I'll write a poem. And actually I won. So the prize was a book by Shel Silverstein. Now, I don't know Shel Silverstein, because in England he's not popular at all.
Oh, really?
No, in America he's very popular. In Shel Silverstein, I go, who's this? And so it was a light in the attic, I think.
Really? Okay.
So then I went to live in Paris, and my mother-in-law said, Chris, you never write anything for your children. So I go, okay, let me write some poems for the children. So then I wrote The Pearls of Wisdom, and I thought, well, who's going to illustrate it? And I go, well, I'll have a go. And at the very beginning, I'm rather bad. It's just like, you don't know I don't know what paper. I was looking at Shel, so like, what paper is he using? What pen is he using? Because if you look at Shel Silverstein, his ink kind of dips or drips.
Right.
And
there's a very distinct style.
Yeah, and so I'm going, what pen's he using? What inks he using? And it's just trial and error.
Did you have any background in illustrating or drawing?
Well, I have a degree in graphic art, just that years graphic art. So I have some skills at that, but not to do children's illustrations. And I can only do black and white. I can only do ink paintings. I mean, I've done some books in color, but you have to be a trained artist to really do that.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you first seek someone to help you draw,
No,
hire someone?
Totally trial and error. So the irony of it, the very beginning, I'm doing it directly from the pen onto the paper, and I get halfway through it and I make a mistake. Oh, okay, then scribble it up and throw it away. But then I realized, wait a minute, there is a technique. So you do it firstly in pencil, and you can rub it out, and you can continue until you get it perfect, and then you go and put the ink on it, and then you rub the pencil out, and you've got the completed form. So, and I got really. You'll see if you look at my poems, not my poems. You look at my illustrations from the Pearls of Wisdom to Fork in the Road. I've become better.
Oh,
yeah, surprisingly, I've become better.
Excellent. And do you feel like you can, I guess, show the feeling behind your poetry better because it's you yourself drawing the pictures?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
And I intentionally make things rather rough because I'm not a great artist. I'm not like a Salvador Dali. I'm not a great illustrator. So if I make it rough, that kind of gives me an excuse that, well, it's not so good, is it? Because I make it rough intensely. I make it rough.
Right.
I don't make it fine art.
Right. That also allows for the words to speak more than the images, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So we have a lot of students that write. They write essays. They write some poetry, and you have turned writing into a career. Can you talk about, if you remember, the moment in your career where you realized, oh wow, this is something I'm doing for a living? Was there a moment where you realized, okay, I've made it now. This is not just a hobby. This is my life.
It was kind of gradual, kind of just jumped out at me. Basically, when I came to Japan, the only thing I brought with me was a series of poems that I illustrated for my graphic art degree's thesis. Mm-hmm. And so I started to teach. And when I was teaching, I met somebody I showed my poems and my illustrations too. And she goes, "Oh, Chris, can I translate them to Japanese?" I go, "Yeah, sure." And that night, her husband was quite a famous avant-garde classical composer. And that night, the Japan Times came round and interviewed him. While he was being interviewed, the interviewer says, "Oh, whose are these poems?" And they go, "Oh, they're Chris's poems." So the next day, the Japan Times phoned me up and says, "Can we use these poems for you in the Japan Times?" I go, "Yes, you can."
Yes. So, yeah, who says no to that?
Yeah, so then well, it's a kind of long story. The story relates to I went to Thailand. On the way I came back from Thailand, I was at the airport, and my friend's girlfriend was a stylist for a fashion company. So they saw me and they go, the next day he phoned me and says, "Chris, would you like to be a model in the fashion show?" I go, "Yeah, why not?" I'm like 24 and I'm just like, "Yeah, okay, I'll do whatever." Mm-hmm. So I did it, and then afterwards she said, the designer came and says, "Chris, would you teach me English?" So I said yes. So every Thursday I used to go around to her house in Roppongi, and there was like 3 of them, and I would teach them English. And so then the day happened when my poems came out in the Japan Times, so I took them around very gleefully. So, look, I've got these poems. Yeah. And they go, "Oh, you should meet my brother." And I go, "Who is your brother?" He goes, "He's the drummer with Sadistic Mika Band." Sadistic Mika Band is really famous Japanese band who actually toured with Roxy Music in England, who I knew, and I knew of them through being a fan of Roxy Music. Uh-huh. So as I said that, he comes into the room and I go, "Oh, wow. Here's my poem." And he goes, "Oh, thank you." And the next week he phones me up and said, "Chris, I'm producing a girl singer called Raji. Can I use your poems for her lyrics?" And I go, "Well, they're poems, they're not lyrics, but yeah, sure." Mm-hmm. And so he kind of cut them up and put some Japanese in it, and so there was a mixture between the two. Mm-hmm. Then he then formed another group called Yellow Magic Orchestra, which is
very well
known. And firstly, he asked me, would I write for Sadistics? They formed Sadistic after Mika Band. They formed Sadistics, and they said, "Well, would you write for Sadistics?" Which I did. And at that time, because at that time we're all in a kind of powwow. We're going to conquer the world, so. There was like all the group and me, and I'm the kind of bridge between the East and the West, and it's like I'm the person who can speak English. I'm the person who can basically bridge this gap between Japan and the world. And at that time, musically, everybody wanted to be known in the world.
Right.
Nowadays, it's very domestic, the market. But in those days, it's like, let's conquer the world. And so I'm sitting around and like, okay, we're going to. And so I was writing songs like Crazy Kimono Kids, Tokyo Taste, like pretty awful songs. No, not awful songs, but pretty cliched songs. And then they formed YMO, and then it went boom, and then I was writing for everybody.
That's amazing. So a lot of that seemed to happen because you were open to opportunities, just saying yes.
Well, people say, "Oh, you were so lucky," but actually, I as soon as I started to do this, I go, "Oh, I'm a lyricist." So I am writing my hands off. I am writing 10 songs a day, but not for myself,
right?
Because there's a formula for writing songs. You know, you have to have a chorus, the verse, and a coda and a bridge. So there's a formula, and especially at those days when I'm writing the lyrics first, you have to make it very visual. You have to make it rather the line rather small. You can't make it very complicated. So you have to understand those kind of the techniques that go with it.
Right.
So I am writing like crazy, and
now are these commission songs? Did people ask you to write them?
No.
So you're writing them in hopes that they'll
I'm just
be
writing
used.
in hopes, and then I'm meeting a lot of people, and then there's a big network system in the music business where the bassist plays with this band and the drummer plays with this, and then they form another band, and then they say, oh, Chris is writing for this band. Can you use him here? So. After a while, I'm writing for lots and lots of people.
I love that you mentioned that because it makes the work sound very real. Like you were putting your head down and just putting in a lot of time and effort in writing lyrics that you weren't sure were going to be used.
I have in America, where I live half my life, I have a box in my garage. Well, it's in my cupboard now, and I think there are 1,000 songs there. 1,000 songs. I think there's 1,000 songs, and I thought about a few years ago, I thought maybe I should publish like the unsung songs of Chris Mosdell. And so I went and looked at these songs, and at the time I thought they were great. I thought they were masterpieces of lyrical writing. I looked at them again, I go, these are awful. These are awful. I could see small nuggets of really something in them, but there's 1,000 songs. So when people say, oh, Chris, you were very lucky, just happened to come at the right time and the right moment in time, I go, no. I put a lot of sweat into that
Absolutely.
form. Yeah.
Let's go back to you coming to Japan.
Okay.
How did that come about?
Again, is it fate? Is it just by some sort of synchronicity of some sort? Did
you throw a dart at a map?
I didn't, but I was living in London. I hated it. I didn't like it. I was not happy with what was happening. I was supply teaching art, and that means if there's a teacher ill, I would go in and step in and
a
substitute teacher. And so I'm desperate to leave London, just go anywhere. And so I go in the staff room one day, and there's a guy in there, and he says, "Oh, I've just come back from Japan." And I go, "He's just come back from Tokyo." I go, "Oh, where is that?" I mean, literally, where is it? So I had to look at the map. Because in England, it's in those days. I wasn't familiar, basically, with the world map. And I go, oh, it just sounded a long way away, and it sounded very exotic. Mm-hmm. And so I did something rather strange. I phoned up the Japanese embassy, and I said, I have a degree in microbiology. I have a semi-master's. I have a graphic arts course. Blah blah blah. And I said, is there any way that I can get to Japan? And they go, "Sir, this is not an employment agency. This is the Japanese embassy." But actually, we know of a kind of international school that is sending teachers out to Japan. Why don't you phone them? So I phoned them. It was in London, in Shaftesbury Avenue. And if you get a degree as teaching English as a foreign language, and it takes 2 months, they'll send you out there, give you a job, give you an apartment, and pay for your ticket. And so I did that. And so within 6 months, I'm in Japan.
That's amazing.
And I know nothing about this country. I'm just, of course, I'm thinking it's all cherry blossoms and samurai warriors and geishas. And of course, I'm completely stunned by the complete opposite of what I found.
Right. I love that. I love that you had this idea. You chose someone to talk to, and that just kind of created reality.
Yeah. I mean, just now when I look back at it now, it's I was destined to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't moved from this country. I mean, I've lived in Paris, and I now have a home in New York as well. But basically, Tokyo, especially, and Japan. Japan is a huge influence on. I'm so English. You can tell. You can tell by my voice. I've become more English, I think, over the years.
Yeah.
I am the classic English gentleman. I am so English, and I think inside of me, I am genetically programmed to be totally English. Where outside, this in Tokyo, there's this chaotic melange of everything. And so this clash between the cultures is so good for me creatively.
Oh, okay. How can we? Does any of that appear in your children's stories? The clash of the Englishmen in Tokyo. Does that play a role?
Well, just the very silliness of things. I mean, I think, I am still of the kind of old school Monty Python kind of absurd humor.
Mm-hmm. I've noticed this. I wanted to ask you about this because there seems to be a good amount of, I don't know how to call it, reverse thinking in a way in your stories, like counting cheetahs if you want to fall asleep quickly, or when birds are flying around and stepping on your picnic table, teach them table manners so that you can tolerate them better. How do you come up with those ideas? Or do you sit there and ruminate over them, or are they in an instant you have the insight and just jot down the idea?
No, I ruminate on things.
Yeah.
You have to look for things. You have to, if I'm in my children's silly writing mode, I'm continually looking around me for objects to write about. And so, anything from a tortoise to, a bird's table manners, and also I think English has that, there's a lot of wordplay and double meanings involved in things. And also, you have to make something funny. And it's, you can't be, especially with children's work, you can't be too dry. You can't be too clever.
Right,
You've got to make it a little bit obvious, and it's, you have to develop a storyline. So I think I said this at the show. If I had a tortoise, and then I saw, well, how do I write a poem about a tortoise? And I go, well, a tortoise is slow. Okay, let's make the tortoise fast. And so he's fast. Well, let's just make him be really fast, win a gold medal at the Olympic Games. And so how can he make a tortoise fast? And I go, well, I use a catapult. And and at the very end, I show the illustration of a catapult. And I go, well, you shouldn't do this with your pets, but
right. I really like this story because it shows a process that you're going through that ends up in a creative, piece. Do you believe then that creativity can be taught? Is it a skill that people can learn to get better at over time?
You can certainly get better at anything. I've become a better poet, I've become a better lyricist, and I've certainly become a better illustrator by just practice. What's the old adage? It's 99% energy and 5% creativity, or 1% creativity. You can definitely become better. You just gotta. There's a phrase in Japanese which I like, which is to continue is to succeed. And I think that's what I do. Just every day I get up in the morning at 8 o'clock and I write for about 2 hours.
Every day?
Every day. I don't really miss a day. And then after that time, my energy, I can't write at night. I've got to have that morning
burst of energy.
And then after a couple of hours, I'm exhausted so that I can put things on the computer and I can fiddle with them and change them around. But basically, I'm a morning person, and every day I should have brought my diary. So I've got huge, vast tracks of nonsense.
Wow. If this might be a good way to segue to the question I always ask guests on the show. If you had some advice for students that might want to explore their own creativity through writing, how should they do that?
Read. I mean, if you're gonna, for me, if you're gonna write, and if you're going to illustrate, but I think if you're going to write, you have to read. And even for me, when I started these children's books, I'm reading all the poets that I think are funny and who are the famous. I mean, Shel Silverstein, yes, I'm quite influenced by him now, even though I didn't know him at the very beginning. But Lewis Carroll, Edward Lear, all these people. I read them all, and you're influenced by them. And then you have to make your own style, and slowly that's how you do it. But for anyone who wants to start writing, read first. Yeah, read first. It's so important, and then just continue to write.
Yeah, read and write.
Read and write. Yes, simple. Very just simple. Read and write.
Exactly. Well, let's move on from reading and writing to speaking. I was wondering, since we have you here in the studio, if you wouldn't mind reading one of your favorite children's poems.
All right. Well, I'm going to read. It's from the Pearls of Wisdom, and this is. I read it at the show, and this is. Little Blue Riding Hood and the Big Good Wolf. And again, there's the reverse logic in, it's Little Blue Riding Hood, it's the sister of Little Red Riding Hood, it's the Big Good Wolf, not the Big Bad Wolf. And so I've always liked this. I always like this poem because it's you don't expect, firstly, Little Red Riding Hood is walking through the woods and she's got the apple pie and blah, blah, blah. And you don't expect what you're going to hear. And the ending also, for me, is unpredictable. So that's what I always like. So I'll read it here. It's called The Story of Little Blue Riding Hood and the Big Good Wolf. Little Blue Riding Hood came skipping through the woods when, to her great surprise, out jumped the Big Good Wolf. "How low, my little cutie? What's in the basket, my sweet? A homemade apple pie for a nice old wolf to eat." "Oh, I've only an iron bar, Mr. Wolf, and a brick in a woolly sock, but I'm having tea with Grandma, so I really should be off." "Whoa," said the Big Good Wolf, and he drew himself right up, and he huffed and he puffed and he huffed and he puffed, and he pretended to be tough. Then he swallowed up the brick, chewed up the woolly sock, wolfed right down the iron bar, which gave Blue quite a shock. "I thought you were supposed to be good," queried Little Blue Riding Hood. "Well, not that good," said Wolfie. "Anyway, I thought you were supposed to be red." "Oh, that's my silly sister. I didn't know you knew her. I'm not like her at all. I'm naughtier and bluer." "But Wolfie, look what you've done. You've eaten up my brick. You've gobbled up my iron bar. There's wool around your lips." "Oh, I'm terribly sorry, my dear, but why the bar and the brick? Why the woolly sock? They've made me rather sick." "Well," smiled Miss Hood, "that'll teach you not to be good. My mother said, 'Be careful, Blue, when walking through the woods. Beware of the good that's bad, and take your mother's advice, for not everything in the woods is cute and sweet and nice. So take this iron bar and this brick in your father's sock, and if you meet a wolf, knock his block right off.'" "Aha," said the Big Good Wolf. "Then it's too late for that now. They're all down here inside." And he laughed, and he growled, and he howled. But Little Blue Riding Hood, a twinkle in her eye, looked up at the howling wolf with a pretty, sugary smile. And on that woodland path she opened up her huge, huge mouth and gobbled up the Big Good Wolf, then skipped to Grandma's house. Ta-da!
That is amazing. All right, so I want to mention that story is from The Pearls of Wisdom, which won an Evie Award for Best Humor. In Search of the Holy Whale won the Best Book 2010 award for humor. And Fork in the Road won the Gold Prize of the Moonbeam Children's Book for Poetry. It seems like everything you touch turns to gold. And this is like a new genre that, you started writing about, or writing in for the last 10, 15 years. Do you have any plans to branch out into a new genre of art?
Ooh, that's a question. The thing with, especially as I'm in Japan, it's such an eclectic kind of place to be that I've worked with all sorts of unusual people. Like calligraphy artists or swordsmen or all sorts. And, at the moment, I have a house in Kyoto, so I'm backwards and forwards from Kyoto. And in Edo times, the Tokaido used to be the road that go from Tokyo, from Edo to Kyoto, and so the famous woodcut artist Hiroshige who painted 53 stations of the Tokaido, and these are 53 woodcut prints. So at the moment, I've decided I'm going to move to Kyoto. So I'm moving by writing. So I'm writing the 53 stages or 50 stations of the Tokaido, and that's my way to get to Kyoto. And there's also these blind monks called biwa hoshi, and they were blind monks who would play the biwa, and they would recite the oral tradition. They would recite the Heike Monogatari, which is the story of the embattlement between the clans of Japan. And so that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Wow.
And so, I'm going to make it as a book of poems, but maybe I'm going to add some illustrations to it. But again, this is what I can do in Japan, because I'm English. I've got this huge history of a culture that I've been in a long time, but there's so much I'm still it's never very cliched to me. If I started to write about some English drama or Shakespearean characters, it would be a bit cliched. But for me,
Japan never gets old.
No, it never gets old because there's so much. I'm putting another stance on it. It's a really fertile kind of place for me to be.
And you've worked with so many different artists here, from all different genres and walks of life. I'm curious, do you have a preferred personality type that meshes really well with you when you're working on creative stuff?
I'm not really very good at working with people, actually.
Really?
Apart from you guys, you're fine. I'm really very insular. So yes. If people want me to change the lyrics, I'll do it under suffrage.
I was going to ask, because you've co-written so many things together. How does that work then?
Usually it works. There's two ways you can work with lyrics. Anyway, there's two ways you can work. Either you write the lyrics first, or the music comes first. If you write the lyrics first, then it's basically a poem, and you have to make it metered so that the composer can compose from it. So you have to make it metered, and you have to make each verse very similar in the meter, and then you have a chorus, and you have a bridge, and you have another series of verses, and the chorus, and then the coda. So it's a kind of formula for writing a song. But if you have the music first, you can do so much more. Basically, you can feel the music, and English is very good for stretching and expanding and squeezing words into things that you would never think you can do. And also, music carries words, so you could actually write the back of a cornflake packet, and if you had really good music, it would sound great.
Yeah.
And the one thing I do like about Japan, I've always liked about Japan, is they always publish the lyrics.
Oh,
and
right,
so I always think it's my poem has to sound good and look good on paper.
Oh, okay. It's a visual element.
Yeah, because there's so many songs that you go, oh, that's a really great song, and when you read the lyrics, you go, what the heck is that?
Yeah, that happens quite a lot these days.
And you go, but the music has carried the words, and that's the great thing with music. It'll carry anything. If you got a great melody, it'll just like you can sing anything, it'll sound good. Have
you done any writing in Japanese?
No, my Japanese is awful.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's possible.
Yeah.
If a foreigner, I can speak it, but it's not like I'm not fluent by it. It's such a long way. It's a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
But my wife is American.
Okay.
And I'm. This is my excuse. I'm backwards and forwards. I lived in Paris. My French is awful as well. My kids are bilingual in French because they went to French school. So my excuse also, my Japanese is okay. But actually, I think I want to retain my identity. I want to retain being British.
You know, I understand that because I realize that when I speak in Japanese, I have a different personality, and I don't particularly like that personality. So yeah, sometimes speaking in English is it's more than just convenience. It's about kind of retaining who you are.
I think if you cross the border between cultures, you can get lost. You know, I know people who have been here a long time, like I have, and they get married to a Japanese, and they speak good Japanese, and you kind of get lost in the whole cultural swamp.
Yeah. That's a great phrase, cultural swamp.
I hope you're not in that swamp.
No,
Chris.
definitely I'm not in that swamp. But it reminds me of another phrase that I think I heard you quoted on some writing that was talking about Behind the Mask, the Michael Jackson song, and you described the lyrics as describing a depersonalized society in a technological time. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, at that particular moment, when I was writing for YMO especially, I had this idea of, okay, this is techno, it's techno pop, let's make this, I have to make my lyrics kind of impersonal. So I would never use I'd never use anything personal.
Okay, so no pronouns like
no pronouns,
I, you,
no,
we.
no pronouns at all. And I would write in McDonald's. The way you write is really important. The environment that you're surrounded by is so important.
Okay.
So now I've graduated. I've graduated to Starbucks now because they play quite good music. But at that time, I wanted to be in McDonald's because basically it's fast food. People come, they go. There's no coziness to it.
Right,
it's really stark and impersonal, and it's fast food. It's kind of modern, kind of trashy kind of food and unhealthy, but people are just rushing through, and so. That was the motif for how I was going to write.
Wow. Was that also a commentary on the time, like how you were seeing society changing?
Yes, I think so. I mean, yes, at that time, you know, the whole cliche of the Japanese businessman and the workaholic and all these kind of things, which, you know, luckily I think Japan is changing for the better, and it's so much better. But I think at that time, especially in the 80s, there was this perception, especially from abroad, of this Japanese culture, which was like completely out of control, and the rush of society, and the overwork, and the company loyalty, and all these kind of things. And I used that as a motif in the poems. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Fascinating. So that particular poem, Behind the Mask, I'm not sure if people listening to this would know the story behind it, but if I were to summarize, it was picked up by a famous producer, brought to the States, shown to Michael Jackson, who then wanted to use it for a song, and it somehow came back to you to ask for permission, perhaps, to change some of the words?
It's a song that just keeps going on and on and on. Basically, I had been to see a play by W.B. Yeats called At Hawk's Well, and it's basically a no play. And of course there was masks in it. And then Yeats also wrote a poem called The Mask. And so I was reading that at the time and thought, because actually Behind the Mask is not a title that I usually write. I usually do a lot of alliterations in my poems and in my titles, like Solid State Survivor, that kind of thing. So Behind the Mask is quite an unusual one for me to use as a title, but I did. Okay. I don't know why. I don't know how that happened. But the basic premises of it was a mask, and when you take the mask off, there's another mask underneath it. Okay. And the lines on the mask, the mask slowly was growing older, and the feelings, the emotions of the body was shown through the face. I see, okay. And so I wrote that song. And I gave it to Yellow Magic Orchestra, and so
So it was a song, not a poem.
It was a lyric, basically. A lyric.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a lyric. And so I gave it, and then I gave it to Sakamoto Ryuichi. And so then he comes back and says, Chris, great, but I need another verse. So then I wrote another verse. And so together we collaborated on making that song. And then that came out on the album Solid State Survivor. Mm-hmm. At that time, when YMO became very popular, Quincy Jones, who was then producing Michael Jackson, came over to Japan and found this song. So then he took that song back, and Michael Jackson then added a new melody line and some new lyrics. So there's half my lyrics and half his lyrics. Mm-hmm. Then,
how did you feel about that, by the way, when you heard about it?
Well, firstly, at that particular time, Michael Jackson. Who's Michael Jackson? I was not interested in him at all.
Right, yeah.
He was kind of disco, off the wall. I think that was in his album. It was like,
right.
It was like, who is Michael Jackson? I wasn't at all interested. And then he go, Michael Jackson's recorded your song. I'm going, really? Okay. Not like wow.
Right.
Just
matter of factly.
And they go, okay, Chris. Basically, he's added another melody line and he's added some extra lyrics. So he wants to take 50% of your royalties and 50% of Sakamoto's royalties. And we go, well, you can't really do that. I mean, it's like taking a Beatles song and adding some extra lyrics and say, yeah, actually, I'd like to take some
that's
copyright.
Pretty aggressive, actually.
But it's Michael Jackson. So I said, okay. And Sakamoto said, okay. But my publishing company said no. Oh. So this was for the Thriller album.
Right, and it was never released
in
the original.
It was recorded for the Thriller album. It was on the Thriller album, and then they took it off the Thriller album.
Oh, so it was, okay.
They took it off the Thriller album, and of course, at that particular moment, I wasn't so concerned, but of course, then it's become like the biggest seller ever.
Right, yeah. So I wanted to ask you about that. Do you look back and wish that it had come out on the album? Like, what do you think would have been the ripple effect?
Well, it's very strange because people said, oh, Chris, you would be sitting by the side of the swimming pool drinking a cocktail now, and I go, but actually, it got even better in a way. Mm-hmm. I mean, monetarily, financially, maybe not quite as good because, but so what happened was it was taken off the Thriller album. And then Michael Jackson gave it to a guy called Greg Fillingales. Greg Fillingales was the arranger for Lionel Richie. Mm-hmm. He then recorded it, and it became a kind of a top 50 hit in the States, on the kind of black market, on the kind of soul kind of charts. Anyway, then Eric Clapton came to Los Angeles to record an album, and Greg joined the Eric Clapton band. Greg then gave it to Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton then recorded it.
Wow.
So the next thing I hear is my mother. My mother, who's living in this little town in England, phones me and she goes, Chris, do you know somebody called Eric Clapton? I go, yes, Mum, I know Eric Clapton. He goes, why? He says, well, the boy from next door who's 15 has just come round with a single record called Behind the Mask and your name is on it. I go, oh, well, that's my song. So then I phone my publishing company. They go, has Eric Clapton recorded Behind the Mask? They go, oh, yes, Chris. I go, well, thanks for telling me. My mother told me. That's how I heard.
Wow. And were you then flattered, honored? Were you?
It's one of those things. It was just like it was rolling on, rolling on, and then of course, this song became famous for being on the Thrill album and in the vaults and taken off. So it became a kind of cult song that was in the vaults, ready to be released at some time. Right. And then, of course, when Michael Jackson died, then it was released. The first album that Michael Jackson released after his death, Behind the Mask is on it.
On Michael.
So eventually I got my credit.
Excellent. Oh, that much deserved credit, I should add. Do you like the final outcome? I know it's very different from probably how it was first intended to be read.
It's totally different. Michael Jackson's made it into a kind of disco hit, and mine was really a no influence behind the mask, impersonal techno song.
Right.
So there's not much. You can hear the refrain of my lyrics are there, and then he's added a big kind of disco version verse.
Yeah.
It's Michael Jackson. What can I say?
Right.
And he sings it really well. Yeah.
Excellent. 100 tongues. Let's talk about 100 tongues. So you have a hanko, a stamp here with those two kanji, those two Chinese characters on it. Where does that come from?
Well, it comes from MOZZ because. Basically MOZZ, I mean Chris Mosdell, and then so when I was at university, everybody used to call me MOZZ. Mm-hmm. And so when I came over here, I was always called Chris here, but then I thought, I need a name for my kids' books, and I thought, MOZZ is perfect, and I think it's a really good name for a kids' author, and everybody, the kids can easily remember it, and it's catchy, and I enjoy it. So. I was talking with somebody one day, and they go, "Oh, Chris, that's a bird." I go, in Japanese, MOZZ is a bird. It's a shrike.
Really?
It's kind of a nasty bird. It's a kind of a small, hawkish kind of bird that it feeds off small birds or lizards or things, and it hangs them on thorns on the tree.
Really?
A kind of a larder.
Okay.
So I go, so what's the kanji for that? Mm-hmm. And they go, the kanji for shrike is hyakushita. And I go,
really?
Oh, this is perfect.
That's perfect.
Perfect. So that's where 100 tongues come from. And I go, it's perfect. Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I learned about that because there was a documentary made about your life called Ink Music in the Land of the 100-Tongued Lyricist. How did that come about? The making of that documentary, and this is the question that I'm really interested in. How did you feel about someone making a documentary about your life?
Well, I was in Japan, and then the producer of this documentary, who I actually know because I about 15 years ago I lived in Boulder, Colorado. I was living in Paris, and then. The synclavier and guitar player from the Michael Jackson band phoned me and says, "Chris, we'd like you to write some lyrics for us. We made a new band. Why don't you come to America?" And I'm going, America? Yeah. Okay. And I asked my kids, "You want to go to America?" And they were, "Oh yeah, let's go to America." It's like some sort of movie set.
Right.
Whoa, America.
The whole place is Disneyland.
So he had this. Anyway, so this is a guy called Chris Carell. He had this. He had this audio cybernetic studio up in Boulder, Colorado, in Golden, which is in the mountains, in the Rocky Mountains. So I went up there and I started to work on this project. And so that's how and then I became friends with Brian Comerford, who was the radio DJ for a local radio station, and he had a program called Electronic Air, and he was very influenced by YMO and those things, and so I became his friend. So then he phoned me one day and says, "Chris, we would like to do a documentary about you, and we're going to come to Tokyo and do it." So I go, okay. And so
were you shocked?
Yes, I was shocked, and also, I don't like to be. Now it's just audio. It's good. I'm okay because I always make funny faces and wave my hands around, and I'm not, But when you're kind of put in front of a camera, and you can't edit as well, well. So basically, what happened was, especially until you get used to the idea of being on show in front of a camera, is I just seen a documentary about Leonard Cohen, the lyricist and singer-songwriter Leonard Cohen, and he's speaking these beautiful round sentences and very poetic, and I go, I've got to speak like Leonard Cohen, very slow and very meditative, and because I'm all over the place. Like now, I'm speaking very fast, and I change my tenses, and I bumble along, and so I start to do this documentary, and they keep going, and so I'm doing it ostensibly basically like Leonard Cohen.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that I'm not myself. And they're going, Chris, stop being Leonard Cohen. Eventually I got used to it. And they interviewed a lot of people I'd worked with who said some very nice things about me. And yes.
Yeah. Speaking, one of those people was famous poet Shuntaro Tanikawa. He described you as avant-garde, and there was a line in the documentary where you said that you used to, or maybe you still do, write poems in the form of mazes, and you would write poems in ink and then take it into the shower so the words would, flush down the drain. It sounds pretty avant-garde to me. Do you agree with what he said?
Avant-garde, yes. That was especially in my Have I always been experimental? Yeah, I mean, you're always trying to look for some new kind of glitch in things that are going to alter the way you write, or discover a poet that is somebody you need to change your viewpoint. Am I avant-garde? I'm just a little lyricist. I'm a little poet who just keeps going on, and I'm very experimental. Especially what you're talking about is when I was doing my album called Equation, and that is I'm using my scientific background. Mm-hmm. So an equation, but I'm using EQUASIAN, like Asian. So I'm half English, half this East-West kind of collaboration. And so at that time, I worked with an architect, and so I was doing visual poems. So
Visic, is that what you
Visic,
call it?
yeah. So I was using. So I wrote the poems I wrote a poem about mazes, but I wrote about chemical formulae. The one you're talking about taking it into the shower. Yeah, I wrote it. It's called Artwork. It's about water, and so I wrote it in ink, and then I took it into the shower, had a shower with it, and then tried to read it afterwards. Yeah, there's lots of kind of quirky kind of things. I mean, I did a whole album with Tanikawa Shuntaro after that called The Oracles of Distraction. Mm. The Oracles of Distraction to me is my opus, my masterpiece. It's 77 songs, 77 paintings, and 77 poems. And Tanikawa did also 77. I thought, 77 is some sort of mystical number.
Right.
And so I wrote some very small poems, and the title and the poem, the body of the poem are not connected. They're complete. No, the idea is it's called the Oracles of Distraction. It's basically to make you go another direction. It's like you see something at the corner of your eye and then you move your head that way.
Right.
It's that kind of thing. So, we did that, and then we did 77 songs, and so this was when I think it was Sakamoto Ryuichi's label called MIDI, and they said, "You want to do an album?" Because that's when the CD came out, and the CD you can program. Right. You can program. So we had 77 songs. So originally I met Tanikawa, and at that time I was carrying around with me a little pack of cards, of 77 cards, and he said, "What's that?" I go, "Oh, it's this. Basically, if somebody wants me to write a song, I go, oh, wait a minute," and I shuffle the pack of cards, and I pick the card out, and I go, "Oh, this way." And so that was the way. And he goes, "Oh, Chris, this is really interesting. Can I write the reverse side in Japanese, but not translation, just another 77?"
Okay.
And so I go, "Yes, of course," because Tanikawa said, "You're a wonderful poet." So literally about 3 weeks later, I was at another gathering, and I met Tanikawa. He said, "Oh, Chris, I finished." I go, "What?" I finished the 77. I go, "You finished?" Because actually, the one thing with Tanikawa, he's great. He's like a businessman. If he says he's going to do it, he does it.
You trust him.
Yeah, trust him. So we had 77 poems, and then we had 77 paintings, and then we went in the studio and we did 77 musical tracks. They're small, avant-garde, but again, using very experimental methods like having a famous guitarist come in and untune your guitar. Play it untuned.
Play it untuned.
Or a violinist coming in and said, okay, I want you to, there's no score. Just imagine that you're jumping from a skyscraper in Hong Kong over the catwalks of Hong Kong. And he would go, okay, wait a minute. I go, no, not quite.
Yeah.
More guy. One more time. And so we were doing so we got to, originally, I thought, we'd do it very quickly. Like I said to the record company, okay, we'll do 10 songs a day. It's just kind of sound effects. But no, we were doing like one song a day, and really, this is really complicated, like almost classical music. And so we get to like 54, and they go, stop, Chris, you're way over budget. I go, yeah, but we're 54. Only 77. All right, continue.
That's amazing.